Okay, so we're continuing our lesson from when we talked about the French and Indian War and the Stamp Act. The French and Indian War and the Stamp Act. Today we're going to be talking about another event that happened before the American Revolution, and it's called the Boston Tea Party. Okay, how many of you, when you hear the word Tea Party, what comes to mind? What comes to mind when you hear Tea Party? Jen said, I want you to turn and talk to your partner and tell your partner what comes to mind when you hear the word Tea Party. Turn it off.
I hear like a gathering of friends, and they're like having a tea party, like, and they grab the tea and they drink it. Like they have the little cups, and then they like have a teapot and they pour it in there. You in Boston and you're having a tea party. That's what I think. No, I think.
Class?
Yes.
Alright, who would like to share with me what their partner said about when you think of the word Tea Party? Share with me, Ms. Rachel.
The hardest thing about arguing is who has the best team.
Alright, I get what you're saying, but I just want you to focus on the word tea party. When you hear the word tea party, you think about an argument. Is that what you think about? Okay, so I want you to focus on the word tea party. So when I say the word tea party to you, what does that make you think of? Drinking tea. Okay, thank you. Anyone else has anything about the word tea party? Kevin.
Quinn said he imagines a little girl playing with a teacup.
Okay, imagine a little girl playing with her teacup. Marcus.
My brother said he imagined like a party going on, a whole bunch of friends gathering together to have a meeting.
Having a meeting.
Like a book club.
Okay, so hands down, let me tell you what my partner said. My partner was Corey, and he said that he imagined you drinking tea and eating scones. How many of you ever heard the word scones before? Okay, all right, put your hands down. And so I asked them about what a scone was, and Tacoris, what did you say a scone was?
A scone is like a biscuit but hard.
Okay, it's like a biscuit, a sweet. So most time they're sweet, and they're like a biscuit. And a lot of times when you do have tea parties, when people have tea parties, they do drink tea and eat scones. Okay, so some of the things that you said come to my mind when I think about a tea party. I also think about Alice in Wonderland. How many of you ever seen that movie or read the book? Well, in that story, Alice in Wonderland, she had a tea party, okay? And they drank tea. I too, LaQuint, think about a little girl that has a tea set and drinking tea over and playing with her stuffed animals or with her friends drinking tea. All right, where do you think tea came from? Where do you think tea comes from? Yes. China. Okay. Yes, but what place? What country? China. China is one of the largest suppliers of tea to different places in the U.S. and to different places in the world. I want you to think back on our lesson that we talked about on yesterday about the Stamp Act. Now, what was the problem with the Stamp Act? Who can tell me what the Stamp Act was? Let's just review really quick. What was the Stamp Act, Empress?
It's when King George III made American colonists pay taxes.
Pay taxes, but what did they pay taxes on? What did they pay taxes on? decided that by the enforcement of King George, that they were going to put a tax on any legal document, anything that was paper. They're going to tax it with the Stamp Act. How did the colonists feel about it? How did the colonists feel about it?
Colonies didn't think it was fair that they had to pay tax on King George and his and the people.
All right. They didn't think it was fair. Now, I want you to think back to our lesson we did on yesterday. Everyone got 10 pennies in here. We talked about how the 10 pennies were, each penny was considered maybe $100. And I began to our King George began to tax certain things. He told the Parliament at first he wanted to tax everyone in the classroom who had on Nikes. Any Nikes. Jordans, didn't matter, Katie, it didn't matter what you had on. If you had on something that was Nikes, he was taking 3 pennies from you. Okay? After that, he decided to tax. After he taxed the Nikes, he decided to tax, was it the jackets? Everyone that had a jacket on got a tax. Okay? And then lastly was everyone that had on black pants that was taxed. Now, I know at the end of the lesson, we had Tyler who had only 1 penny left. Okay? Everybody had different amounts from different places. And you guys began to see what the effect of taxing did to the colonists. As a student, did you like the fact that you was being taxed? No. So if I had imposed, if the king, and let's just say I was the king, had imposed another tax and said that everyone in class that had on glasses had to pay a tax, would Tyler have any money left?
No.
No, he wouldn't. Okay? So the colonists felt that the stamp tax was unfair. What was the purpose of the stamp tax? Why did King George and the Parliament want to enforce the Stamp Act?
Because they had to get money for the war they had to pay for.
Okay, so they had just gotten over the French and Indian War, and they had to figure out some way, somehow, to pay for the war. We talked about that war is caused over many things, but we know that war costs money, a lot of money as well, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So with that being said, we know all of these events have happened. And so I'm asking you, how would you feel if we came up with a tax that everyone who wear uniforms to school had to pay an additional tax for wearing a uniform? Would you like it?
No.
Okay. All right. So by a show of hands, how many of you would like a uniform tax? Okay. So think about how the colonists feel. Yes, sir.
But, like, if we supposed to wear uniform, then we was gonna have a tax when a lot of people like to come to the school.
They wouldn't. They wouldn't like to go to school. They wouldn't probably want to go, but if you didn't have any other options, what would happen? You would have to pay the tax. Okay? So that's what happened to the colonists. A lot of them didn't have those options. Okay? Well, today we're going to be talking about the Boston Tea Party. And the Boston Tea Party was an event that happened after that Stamp Act and some other acts were put in place by the government trying to get the colonists to pay taxes. So in your book, open your book up. Open your book up to 279. Quintavia, will you read the Boston Tea Party?
In 1773, committees of correspondence began writing about the Tea Act. A new law passed by Parliament. The Tea Act said that one British company, the East India Company, would be the only company
members, one of our vocabulary words that we talked about that had to do with the East India Company. What do you call that? When you're only person that can sell one thing, what do you call that? What do you call that? LaQuint? Monopoly. Everybody said monopoly.
Monopoly.
So they said that that was the only company that you can buy from. Okay, are we together?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, go ahead.
The Tea Act had two goals. The first goal was to help the struggling East India Company. The second goal was to give the colonists to pay taxes to Britain. So far, the colonists had refused to pay British taxes. They were not about to start. They also did not like the idea of being forced to buy tea from one company. Colonists declared that ships bringing British tea to the colonies would not be allowed to unload in any colonial port.
All right, continue.
In late 1773, 3 ships carrying British tea sailed into Boston Harbor. On the night of December 16th, members of the Sons of Liberty disguised themselves as Mohawks. They rowed out to the British ships shouting, "Boston Harbor, a teapot tonight." They boarded the ships, chopped open the chests of tea with axes, and dumped the tea into the harbor. This became known as the Boston Tea Party.
All right. Now, so when the colonists heard of this new tax, they decided that, okay, we're not taking any more taxes. We're not going to do the tax on the tea. We shouldn't have to buy from just this one company. So they decided that, well, the ships come in, but don't unload them. Just sit there in the harbor. Now, they're sitting there, and they come up with a plan. They come up with a plan that they're going to go and disguise themselves as Mohawks. What does disguise mean? What does disguise mean? What does Anthony?
To dress up as something you're not.
To dress up as something you're not. So what is a Mohawk? What do you think a Mohawk is? The Mohawk we're talking about in the colonial times now. Yes. It was, but what was a Mohawk? What do you think they're talking about? They didn't dress up as themselves. They had to disguise themselves. Yes.
And dressed up like workers.
Not workers. One more guess.
Indians?
Indians. So they went and dressed up as Indians. They were disguising themselves as Indians. Now let's think about this. Was that good or bad? Why? Raise your hand. Why? Why was that bad? Tyler?
First of all, they're dressing up as something they're not. And then second of all, they're going to steal stuff from a boat.
Okay. And who do the British might think is stealing who's destroying the tea?
The colonists
No. Because they didn't dress up as colonists.
are Indians.
As the Indians. So now you may have the British looking at the Indians, the Native Americans, in a way that, okay, why did you guys do that? You understand that? All right, so today we're going to look deeper into this part of the Boston Tea Party. Go ahead and finish reading.
Soon colonists were singing a new song. Rally the Mohawks. Bring out your axes and tell King George we'll pay no taxes. When news of the Boston Tea Party reached London, British leaders were furious. King George III and Parliament believed that Boston must be punished.
All right, so now, some of the things that it did not give us a full view of everything that happened. So let me go back and recap some things. Who remembers, we talked about from our previous lesson, who was over the Sons of Liberty? The Sons of Liberty. Samuel Adams. Samuel Adams was over the Sons of Liberty. And the Sons of Liberty were actually those colonists that aboard the ship and broke open those crates and poured the tea into the water. Okay? That's one detail I want you guys to know. Samuel Adams was one of the founding people who helped the Sons of Liberty to come up with different things that they were protesting against during that time. Okay? All right, now, with that being said, we're going to play a game today. I'm trying to cheat. We're going to play a game. How many of you watch the show Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Okay, good. Put your hands down. Well, we ain't playing no. We're playing Are You Smarter Than a
Colonists.
Good job. Let's see if we get set up. Let's see. Corey, can you move your desk back so that we can spread it out and just put your chair over? Alright, so with our game today, we're going to be split into two teams. It'll be side A against side B. Okay? Side A, side B. Are we together?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you have three categories here. You have the French-Indian War. You have the Stamp Act. And then you have the Boston Tea Party, which is what we just went over. Okay? You have... Let me just put it out. Move your book. Can everybody see it now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. You have those three categories. Now, on side A, you're going to pick two representatives that's going to be over who's going to be your speakers. On side B, you're going to pick two representatives that's going to be your speakers. Now, the key is whatever category, whatever dollar amount that you use is fine. If you get the question wrong, the opposite side gets a chance at the question. Okay? Now, so quickly, let me say this. Quickly, you have 2 minutes. Talk amongst yourselves and decide your two representatives. All this time.
Everybody need to raise their hand. You vote for me and the queen.
It's a card. Empress Q.
All right, you should have a representative. We have 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Side A. Who are your raise your hand if you are the two representatives. Okay? So you guys will stand. Empress, come over here. Cortavia. And actually we'll let y'all sit. Yeah, move, let them sit in the middle. Marcus, let them have your seats. Thank you. Alright, who's the two representatives, speaking representatives up here? LaQuint and Lauren. Okay, so I want Joshua James. Now, the whole team Okay. Everybody can have heads. This is heads over here. Alright, ready? Heads. We'll go first. Alright, give me a category and an amount.
Boston Tea Party. And 400.
Boston Tea Party for 400. Who led the town meeting earlier that day to discuss the unfair taxation of tea by the British? Who led the town meeting earlier that day to discuss the unfair taxation of tea by the British? Okay. A. Samuel Adams is correct. Good job. All right, side A. Side A.
Indian War, 400.
French and Indian War for 400. France tried to protect its claim in North America by: is it A, attacking English settlements along the Atlantic coast? B, bribing English officials in western settlements? Or C, building forts in the Ohio River Valley? C, building forts in the Ohio River Valley is correct. So we have a tie between A and B at 400 each. All right. Side B.
The step at
65.
65.
What amount?
400.
400. Why did the British government decide to tax the colonies? Why did the British government decide to tax the colonies? Is it A, to pay for the French and Indian War? B, to pay for a new palace for King George? C, to pay for a war against Spain? Or D, to pay for improvements in the city of London? Yes. A, to pay for the French and Indian War. All right. This side. One more. Stamp Act 300. The colonists objected to the Stamp Act because A, they did not have their own representatives in the parliament. B, believed that no government had the rights to raise taxes. C, accused tax collectors of cheating them. Or D, did not want to pay for the high tax price of